I have a Nintendo Switch in today. It was left in for water damage and it's not turning on, not charging. If I plug in my USB-C meter, you can see that it's not taking any charge. It's at 12 volts, which means this chip here, this charging chip, is communicating properly with the charger, but 0.015 amps is not enough. It should be taking 0.4, 0.5, even 0.7 if the screen's on. So we have an issue with it not charging at least. So if we try and turn it on, obviously there's not enough voltage in the battery. So to diagnose this issue, what I'm doing is I have my bench power supply set to battery voltage and I have it wired into this charging circuit area here. This chip here is the charging chip. It's called a BQ chip. I have my bench power supply wired in just after that, emulating where the battery voltage would be. So if we turn that on and we try and turn our console on now, you can see here we're getting the first stage boot and then the second stage boot. So this loads up now. We know the console is working if the battery is getting charged. So the problem is just with the charging circuit here. So we have a working console, which is good news. We just need to sort out why this isn't charging now. So the area here is the charging circuit. It will be in this area. I would bet that the problem is, I would say maybe that BQ chip. Or if you look really closely, you can see those little components there don't look great. Those two there, I'm pointing at the bigger ones. So I would say either that chip or those two capacitors are going to be the problem. But you can see how valuable this diagnosis is now. Just using the bench power supply and knowing where to wire it into this motherboard helped us narrow down that problem very quickly. We can focus on this area now and get the switch fixed. So I'll just test the power coming into this chip now. We're getting our 12.27 volts. That's the power going in, so it is receiving power. If I check the power coming out, we're getting 3.5. It's kind of jumping around there, but that's not going up. That should be going up. That is actually the battery voltage. If I check the battery connector itself, that's showing the battery voltage. And if I go over here to the output of the chip, that's the battery voltage, which is jumping around a little bit, but it should be going up rather than down. So that's telling me the problem is with this chip, as we're getting power in, but we're not getting power out. So I'm going to go ahead and replace that now and see, does this console start charging? So I have those components removed there now. I removed the BQ chip and I removed these two capacitors, which weren't looking great. So we have the 3 empty spaces there now on the board. I'm going to take what we need from this donor board here, which is beyond repair. So I'll reuse these components and see if we can get this one charging. So we have those components replaced there now. You can see it's a bit messy. I haven't cleaned it up yet, but I'm just going to test it first. So we have our battery plugged in, and what we're going to do is we're going to plug in our USB-C meter here and check what the current draw is. So with that plugged in, we can see it's turned on and it's taking 0.7 amps. So that means the console is charging now. Obviously we'll need to put this back together properly to fully test it, but that's a good sign so far. I would say that console is working properly. A nice wee tip to check if the board's turning on without having access to the screen, or at least a good indicator if the board's turning on, to plug in the battery. Make sure the board is in a powered off state. So plug in the battery and plug in your USB-C meter here. And we're going to watch the USB-C meter to see what it does. So it turns on and it goes to 0.4. Now if it turns off and then turns back on at 0.7 or 0.8 amps, that's a good indicator the board has booted up, because if you ever do this here with a working switch, you'll see that it goes through a cycle of turning off and then turning back on, delivering a higher current draw. So I'm pretty confident this board is working, so I'll put it back together now and we'll see if I'm right. Now that console's all back together, we can test the charging on it properly. So if I plug in my USB-C meter with the charger in it, we can see that it turns on and we get that original 0.4 amps that we got, and we'll see, does it turn off and come back on with a higher amp? Yeah, 0.9 now, because the screen's connected, it's taking more power. So it is booting. That was a good indicator that the console has booted up, and then we can test this properly now. We see we're getting the charging symbol now from just the charger. We don't have to inject voltage anymore with the bench power supply. So obviously I'll need to go through now and test this console completely, but that was just a wee insight into how I would diagnose a non-charging console.